So how many of you are really enjoying the Propelify Festival, even in the rain? Awesome. Isn't this great? So I was really excited to find out who I was going to be chatting with today. Rachel is with a company called Rory. As an investor, we really look for investment opportunities that are differentiated, that serve an underserved area. So when I looked at the Rory website, I immediately could connect with it personally. And when you have that personal connection, that makes it really interesting. So I grew up in a family that was predominantly female. And when someone had a sore throat or a cough or a broken finger, there was no problem having that conversation. But when it came to hormones or vaginas or menstrual periods, that conversation didn't flow as well. Are there any women in the audience that can relate to that? I'm sure. So when I saw the website for Rory, it really interested me. And I'm not going to do any service by describing it. So, Rachel, can you tell us exactly what Rory is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rory is a digital healthcare platform for women. It is powered by Ro, which is the parent company behind us, as well as Roman, the men's healthcare platform. And we really built Rory, kind of to your point, out of personal experiences. So my father is a gynecologist, and yet even so, as I was, getting older and dealing with my own health issues, it just became very clear to me that for me and for a lot of my friends, there were a lot of things, to your point, that we just either didn't feel comfortable talking about, didn't know where to get answers, or really didn't even know what questions to ask and where to start. And it just felt like there was this big pain point in women's healthcare that needed a lot more resources behind it. And so we built Rory. We launched in March of this year with really two main missions. One is to increase access to care. So we are a direct-to-consumer telemedicine platform where you can get diagnosis through delivery for a number of women's healthcare issues. Things that are both kind of more common, like Latisse, but also things that are more stigmatized, like genital herpes, where you might not feel comfortable going to a doctor in person and asking, but we can give you care and access online, still through a physician. The other thing that was really important to us was to expand education around women's healthcare. And so we really view ourselves not only as a telemedicine platform, but also as a content platform where for pretty much anything under the sun when it comes to women's healthcare, you can come to us and learn about it, and everything we write about has been written or reviewed by medical physicians.
Awesome. And definitely check out the blog on the website because it is interesting. There's a lot of things on there that people just don't talk about, so it's a great source of information. You started this company in a predominantly male-oriented type of company. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of how Rory came to be out of what was a predominantly male company?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where I really give the founders at Ro a lot of credit. So Ro was really always envisioned to be a healthcare company. We started with Roman, but to really be a healthcare platform for everybody, expand access to everybody, you obviously can't just treat half of the population. And where I give them a lot of credit is, I think a lot of the reason Roman has succeeded is because it's built in an authentic experience. It's built in empathy from a lot of the experiences of the CEO. And when it came to building a women's healthcare platform, they wanted to give that same experience, that same kind of empathetic, authentic, built brand for women. And given that they are not women themselves, they haven't been, through the women's healthcare system, that's really where I came in and teamed up with them to build Rory. So the idea being that we're essentially building a women's healthcare platform for women by women. A lot of the team, whether it's product managers, supply chain, branding, a lot of it was really women-led and us all driving our experiences together to build Rory. And I think that's what's really been exciting to me has been like both Roman and Rory especially have been built from this very experience-driven point of view and a very empathetic point of view. And I think that's where we've really been able to connect with our members a lot better.
Awesome. So how did the focus on women's health kind of come to be within Ro? Was it something that they were always focused on, or is it something that kind of evolved as they saw the opportunity in that area?
Yeah. So again, I think kind of the concept of expanding to women's healthcare was always something that they had thought about. I actually had seen the Row team pitch their seed round when I was an investor at General Catalyst. And at the time, they were pitching this experience for men's healthcare. But as I was watching them pitch, as I was listening to them describe what the experience was like, this kind of expanded access for stigmatized conditions, it just was like this light bulb went off for me that this is kind of what I was looking for and what a lot of my friends were looking for when it came to our experiences in the healthcare system. For things like endometriosis, PCOS, fertility, I think there are just a lot of things where we felt like things were missing. And when I heard what was being built at Row, it just was incredibly exciting to me and felt like what I had been looking for. And so that was kind of how I got connected to the team, and I joined them to build Rory, to build the women's healthcare platform.
So there's a lot of folks in the audience that are very focused on building brands. We've heard folks speak throughout this festival about building brands. There's more people that will talk about building brands. So you're in a fairly stigmatized industry right now. So you're in a stigmatized space. But building a brand, you're direct to consumer. So building a brand is really important to you. So can you tell us about some of the importance of building that brand, and also just some of the challenges that are involved with that in working in such a somewhat stigmatized area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything consumer, at the end of the day, your brand is so incredibly important. When we think about who we are at Rory, we kind of describe it at the end of the day as your girlfriend doctor who you're at brunch with. Like, we truly have an image in our head of who Rory is as a person if she were to exist. And that's honestly partially why we named the company Rory, because for us it was this very personal thing. We wanted to kind of embody this person who we had envisioned. And I think that's so important with so many brands. When you think about these kind of lasting, enduring brands, it's beyond what they sell. It's about how they make you feel. So there are Nike commercials that I tear up at, like the Serena Williams one. I'm obsessed with it. And that's not because I'm like so obsessed with even my Nike shoes. It's because of what it evokes and how it emotionally connects to me. And so I think if you think about really successful brands, they're able to do that. They're able to go beyond their products and really build a connection with a consumer that feels very personal, regardless of what you're purchasing. And so as we thought about developing that for Rory, that's really why, we're not only having just products, we also have education. And when we have education, when we write, we really think about this point of view of this person we've envisioned as Rory, this kind of doctor friend. So, for example, all of our content is medically written and reviewed, but it's all written in a tone that people can relate to and engage with, kind of like Refinery 29 meets WebMD. And that's where I really think a lot of kind of the longer term success comes for with brands, is building that emotional connection. And I think we've been able to do that partially because of this authentic connection a lot of the team has with women's healthcare. To your point about stigmatized conditions, I think that's where it's both challenging and also really exciting, because it almost makes it so much more meaningful what we're building when we feel like we really give people an outlet that they didn't have before. So, for example, we just launched treatment for genital herpes and cold sores last week. Generally, this is something nobody wants to talk about. We think like nobody really has it. Actually, 17% of women have genital herpes, and the majority of the population, men and women, have oral herpes, or as we call them, cold sores. So it's actually something that's very common that we just kind of sweep under the rug. And so it adds a bit of a challenge in that we have to educate more around it. We have to educate more around things like vaginal dryness or things like menstruation, things that we don't talk about. But it's also an exciting opportunity because it means that we're actually giving people something that they need but didn't have before.
And what have you found to be some of the most effective ways to build your brand? Or you mentioned the blog and the articles that you have posted on the website. What have you found to be obviously Rory's pretty early right now, but so far, what have you found to be most effective?
Yeah, I think sometimes what people forget about a brand is that it's not static. So you don't just, put up some pretty pictures and pick a font and pick colors and like that's it. I think that's a recipe for disaster. Brand really is evolving all the time, and it's really a reflection of who's coming to engage with your brand and how they engage with it. And so what's been really important for us, especially as a young brand has been really listening to the people who come to us, listening to what they want, and kind of adapting the brand to meet their needs. So for example, some of the things we've launched or that we're going to launch next year are actually a direct response to what people have asked us to launch. Some of the content we write are direct responses to what people have emailed into our care team asking questions about. We'll actually then write blog content about it. We have a Facebook group where people are engaging with each other and really finding this kind of community connection. So for us, it's about not just building a static brand, but building a community that's imbued with the brand. And I think the brand, again, to my point of like, you almost want to view your brand like a person, and people evolve and people adapt and people engage with each other. Your brand should be engaging with your customers in the same way a person would.
Sounds like that would really make that personal connection, which seems very important with what you're doing. Obviously, gender is really important with Rory. How does age come into factor as well? So women's health issues changes as their ages change. How do you factor that into your branding, your marketing plan? Obviously, there's different health issues that they face, but then there's also different buying habits that they have as well. So how do you work that into the Rory platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we think about kind of the long-term vision for Rory, it's really being a women's healthcare platform for women at every stage of their life. And that's both very exciting, but it also can be challenging when you think about building a brand, not just for millennials or not just for baby boomers, but one that can really speak to all of those women at different stages of their life. So we actually started with products for menopausal women. That was the first product set we came out with. Just feeling that was a very underserved population, very unlikely to actually get treatment for the issues that they have. But kind of to my point about adapting the brand, one of the products was age agnostic, and we saw a ton of younger women coming onto the platform. And so we very quickly have kind of added products for them. But the end vision for Rory has always been, we want to follow you throughout all the stages of your life. So we want to be able to treat you from kind of your early 20s all the way up to your 80s. In fact, the age range on Rory right now is 18 to 82. Oh, wow. And we're like, we're figuring out how we meet the needs of all those women, again, by really being a holistic women's healthcare platform that can tackle everything from menstrual issues to PCOS to menopause.
Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit. You mentioned that you worked with General Catalyst before you started Rory. That's how you came into contact with Ro. Can you kind of tell us, you've seen it from both sides now, right? I have myself as well, and there's definite differences, obviously, from being an investor than being a startup entrepreneur. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal experience with that and what the differences are and some of the major things that you've learned during that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being on this side has given me so much more of an appreciation for founders and people fundraising than I ever would have had just sitting on the investing side. So when you're on the investing side, you're seeing numbers every so often. You're seeing maybe monthly numbers if they're your portfolio company, depending on how involved you are. Maybe you're checking in more often. Kind of, as the founder, I'm looking at my numbers on like an hourly basis. I'm seeing how everything is trickling in. And I think sometime on the investing side, you can kind of forget like all of the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into each of those numbers at the end of the month. How every day is kind of a different battle or something that comes up that you're not going to get to see as an investor. So I think it's actually given me a lot more empathy and a lot more understanding. But it's also just honestly so much more exciting to be in that kind of day-to-day grind.
And much more real, I found.
Yes.
This was an interesting opportunity for you, right? So Ro is a much bigger company, very well capitalized, has had several rounds of funding. A lot of entrepreneurs here today are really challenged with raising money. That's always one of the biggest challenges in startups, and sometimes it can make them or break them. So you've been in an interesting situation because you kind of built this platform in a company that was already well capitalized. So can you kind of speak to that? Are there opportunities out there for other entrepreneurs to make that happen? What how do you think that helped your company, and can you speak to that interesting situation where you were basically building a platform in an already capitalized company?
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting but really great experience. I think partially it depends on what you're building. So for me, I am very mission driven around women's healthcare. It's something that's literally been a part of my life since the day I was born through my dad. Something I've always really cared about, and kind of the vision of what I wanted it to be was very big. And especially in healthcare, right? There's a lot of regulatory complexity. There's a lot of technical complexity. It's not like building a direct-to-consumer like sweatshirt company. And so I think for me, knowing how big I wanted it to be and knowing all of the challenges that would come along the way, it just felt like a much quicker path to getting to that end mission of expanding women's healthcare access, of really being that brand for women. And frankly, there are a lot of things that just made sense to leverage, like all of the legal regulatory expertise, all of the technical expertise. It just made a lot of sense. And also really freed me up to really run the business. Because if you think about a traditional like founder, CEO, a lot of their time is spent on fundraising. You're spending a ton of your time on fundraising. And it really kind of distracts you from the day-to-day of the business, where I feel like it's been really great that as we've gotten off the ground, as we're so young and growing, I've been able to really be in day-to-day because I haven't had those other distractions. So I think my advice would be partially it depends on what you want to build. If you want to build something in a very kind of complex, regulated environment that requires a lot of capital, I think it's a really great opportunity. And I think we're probably going to see more of it both from startups, but also from incumbent players who are really looking to have more of a foothold in startups. But I think the traditional VC-funded path makes a lot of sense for other ways too. So I think both are great. It just kind of depends what your goals are and what you're building.
Do you see any particular negatives from being under that bigger umbrella?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There definitely are trade-offs to everything. If you're just the standalone company, you can do everything through the lens of what works best for your brand, right? And so I think on both sides, you have to think about when you have multiple brands under one roof, how does one brand impact the other? I think we've done a really good job of balancing that and really giving each brand what it needs. I think partially because it's easy to carve out men versus women. But I could see that potentially being a question is, for example, if you were doing a startup for an incumbent, maybe for like a large hospital player, would you potentially be cannibalizing some of their sales? And would that be an issue for them? So I see that almost being more of a trade-off if you were doing like an incubator for for like a legacy player. But yeah, I think there are definitely trade-offs to kind of any decision.
So Rory is really solving some important problems in women's health. You have a line of products on your website. How do you see the company growing in the future? Different target markets you're looking to get into. How does that fit with your future product lineup? Can you tell us a little bit about what we should look forward to with Rory?
Yeah. For us, it's really about how do we become this holistic healthcare destination for women and really a woman's starting point in the healthcare system. So our philosophy is not necessarily that we can treat everything, because a lot of things don't make sense for telemedicine. You're still going to need your PAP every 2 to 3 years. We can't do that on an online visit. But how do we really be that kind of partner in the healthcare system for you that helps guide you? So maybe you start with us to learn about what questions to ask when you go to your gynecologist. Maybe you start with us to learn to actually get a treatment. But for us, it's really that end goal is to be that starting point and then be your partner in the healthcare system, both online and also in person. And in terms of how we get there, it's really about building out those products that meet all the stages of a woman's life. So more reproductive healthcare, more care around sexual health, but also things like, skincare and weight loss, things that maybe are affected by your birth control. I think in women's healthcare, a lot of things are very integrated and very connected. And at the end of the day, we'd like to be able to meet all of those connected pain points.
Awesome. So I think we're running out of time, but can you tell everyone what your website is and make sure that they all check it out?
Yes, our website is hellorory.com. Check it out either if you want treatment or just want to check out our content. You can actually get $20 off if you go to hellorory.com/ENT. Just do a little plug. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and as excited to share more with you all.
And to all the guys out there, make sure that you tell your significant others to check it out as well. And I did myself, and it's awesome. Definitely check it out. Thanks so much, Rachel.
Thank you.